Arrays. An array is a list or collection of items like a bunch of data stored in one place. Example, an array of colors: red, green, blue. Each item in the array can be accessed by its position or index. Why it's useful? Arrays let you store multiple pieces of data together and work with them easily, especially when you need to loop through them. To make use of arrays, we're going to create an anagram game. I've selected my activity maker template. So for this game, we'll create 7 tiles, and then we'll randomize the order of the tiles. We'll draw from an array of different terms related to Frank Lloyd Wright. So we'll have 3 terms. They'll exist in an array. We'll take the letters of the array and jumble them up and display them on our tiles as an anagram. Let's select a design style. I'll use my Design Styles Manager and look for Frank Lloyd Wright style. Here we go. I'll select that. And once again, I'll select Tools, Themes, change my background color, and click on Advanced to remove the header. I'll call my page Anagram. And now we'll jump into the Scalable Vector Graphics Editor. Now setting up these tiles is going to be a little bit involved, so I ask for your patience. Let's select the rectangle tool, and I held down my Shift key in order to create a perfect square. I'll give this a stroke. Now I'll go ahead and use my text tool. I'll just create the letter A. Let's pump up the font size a little bit. So there I have my tile. Let's group these. So with my selection tool, I'll just select both of these things. Well, before I do that, let me back off. Let me change the ID. I'll change the ID and just so that it makes it easier in the future. Okay, so we have our A. Again, I'll select both of these, and I'll go ahead and group them. So now this serves as a group. I'll then duplicate. This will create the second tile. Highlight both of these, and let's duplicate again. So we have 4 tiles. And then I'll select once again. Use my selection tool. I selected one too many. That's okay. We'll get rid of one. Good. So I have all of my tiles created, but We have more work to do. Get those aligned. Good. Now, this is a group, and you can see that we've selected a group. We can see that here. We can go one level deeper and click on the text element within the group. Now what we'll do is we'll call this letter 1. Hit enter. And then you can see right here that we're in layer 1. So let's select this, double click, and then we'll call this letter 2. We'll give that an ID, and then I'll hit enter. Now let's just be sure that this is all happening in the way we want it to. So we'll click here, we'll double click, and we can see that's level 1. Go back to layer 1, double click here, and we can see this is letter 2. So this is working just fine. And we'll do the same thing. We'll dig into the group, and this will be letter 3. Hit enter. You got to remember to hit enter, and you need to remember to click on layer 1 to get back to the surface. This is letter 4. It's really important that these letters end with numbers because that enables us to easily access this within a loop inside a script. Letter 5. Need to hit enter. Letter 6. Enter. And finally, letter 7. So we've done that work. It was a bit tedious. Now what we'll do is create a little container so that we can drag these items around inside a container. Here's my container, and I'll call that a rack. I've got to make sure that I select the container. I was about to select the wrong thing. Call that rack. And then let's give that a color. And then I'll right click and send that to the back. Let's give that a little bit of a stroke. Good. So this was called rack. And once again, you can double check your work by simply double clicking, ensuring that every letter has an ID. Otherwise, this just won't work because we won't be able to target the letter. It looks great. Okay. Now we need to make each of these letters draggable. I'll right click on the group, select drag branch option, You must remember to execute command. We have no drop target here, but we do have a constraining element. We want to constrain a drag within the rack. And we don't worry about the axis. So we do that with each one. I'll right-click on the group, drag branch options, select execute command, select the constraining element. Select branch options, execute command. I did something wrong here. Let's right-click, drag branch options. Okay, here's our fourth tile. Right-click, drag branch options, execute command, constrain this to the rack. So by constraining, it just means we can only move it inside of this pink area. Almost done. Now if you wanted to, you could constrain the axis, but essentially that'll make our game clumsy, because if we constrain it to the axis X, then tiles will get in the way and we won't be able to kind of reorder them very easily, so we're not going to do that. We've made all of these tiles draggable, and all of these letters are now addressable. Click X, save our work, and I'll go ahead and save here. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll write our code, but not until we select this graphic and go ahead and ensure that it is 100% so that it's a relative width and that it's centered. Great. All of our code is now going to happen within this branch option, and that gives us our editor. There's a great deal of work here to construct this anagram, so you'll have to be very patient. I'll walk through this step by step. The first thing we're going to do is create 3 arrays for our words. Now, since this is related to Frank Lloyd Wright, we're going to find 3 terms that are 7 letters that we can then jumble up. So our first word is going to be assigned an array. Arrays are designated by square brackets. Now this is going to be an array of characters. We're going to work out the word organic. Now each letter will be in double quotes, so we have double quote, separated by a comma. So each of these our item is an array. This is item 0, item 1, 2, 3. So this is 0 indexed array. And then one more. So we have the word organic. Again, an array has square brackets. Each element, when you initialize this array, each element of the array is separated by a comma. So that becomes word 1, and we can simply copy now and paste to create word 2. Our word 2 will be prairie, another term related to Frank Lloyd Wright. And then we'll create word 3. Now, we could create many words to make this more challenging, but I think this is enough to illustrate the point. This word will be falling, related to falling water. So all of these terms relate to Frank Lloyd Wright. So organic architecture, prairie style homes, falling water, all related to Frank Lloyd Wright. Now, so we have each of these is an array. We know that because of the square bracket. So we have 3 arrays. Now we're going to create an array of arrays. I'll use my variable keyword. I'll create an array called words, and in that array I'll place my character arrays. So this essentially is an array of arrays. We're now going to generate a random number. I'll create a variable. Which will be assigned. We'll use our random function again, which will produce 0 to 1. And a property of an array, so words is an array, one of the properties is length. So here we're generating a random number basically from 0 to whatever the length of the array is. But because this is a 0 indexed array, we want to ensure that we don't produce the number 3, because this array, the only legal indices of this array are 0, 1, and 2. So we'll have to adjust our random number. We want our random number, if it produces, for example, 2.3, we want to use the floor value of that. In other words, lop off the decimal part. And floor will always, for example, it'll round 2.3 to 2 or 3.5 to 3. It'll always round down. And that's what we want. We want this to be round down so that essentially the only outcome of this will be a 0, 1, or 2, a 0, 1, or 2. Now, the word we select create a variable called word. The word we select will be whatever our random number is. To explain this, let's say that our random number is 0.5. So 0.5 times 3, that's the length. 0.5 times 3 would give us 1.5. So 1.5 becomes the input to floor, and floor would then produce 1. 1 would be assigned to a random number because essentially we're lopping off the 0.5. So if random number is 1, then this is 0, this is 1. We're now going to return or assign prairie. We're going to assign this array of letters to word. So word will essentially be an array of characters. Great. Now let's jumble these up in a loop. My index, will be assigned 6. We're going to go backwards in this loop. We're going to continue to loop while I is greater than 0. And then instead of incrementing I, we're going to decrement I. So here's our initial value of I will be 6. As long as I is greater than 0, we're going to keep looping, and then each time we're going to subtract 1 from I. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Going to generate another random number, and I'll just change this variable name. So whatever I is, we're going to take some percentage of I and assign it to random number. And then again, we need to round down. So we will round down. Cannot access an array with a fraction number. Now let's take whatever letter is in I. So let's say I is 6, and let's say it's prairie. Well, we're taking this letter and putting it into a temporary holding place. We're remembering what the original letter is before we swap it. Now, the next part is the swap. Here we're taking a random letter from our word, and that's how we do it. We use our random number, so this will now randomly pick one of these, and it could be from 0, it could be from the 0 spot all the way to the 6th spot. So remember, this is 0 indexed, so there's 7 letters, 0 to 6. And so whatever that is, so we will randomly select one of these letters. Now we might reselect the 7th letter. That's fine. So in other words, it swaps with itself. That's not a problem. Now, whatever that swapped letter is, we're going to put that in the 6th spot if I is indeed 6. So we're assigning to the sixth spot, the first time around, we're assigning to the sixth spot whatever our randomly selected letter is. And then we have to restore so we then have to take whatever we randomly selected and put our original letter there. So that's what we did, is we're now we're just jumbling up all the letters here. Let me walk through that one more time. So we first randomly generated a number, and it turned out, so one possibility is we generated 1. So we got the word at index 1. So remember, this is 0, 1, 2. We then I started at 6, and we're basically counting down. So now what we do is generate a random number, essentially we're generating a random number from 0 to 6 now. That's essentially what's happening. If we generate a number such as 6.5, we'll make sure to lop off that 0.5. So let's say we generated 3.5. So as a result of this function, we'll now have 3. So what letter is it that we're going to get? 0, 1, 2, 3, the I. So first we take the 7th letter and we temporarily store it. Now this random number will give us I, and we'll go ahead and place in the 6th spot, because remember I is 6, we'll place the letter I. And then, or the letter I from here. Okay, and then we place, remember this is what we randomly selected, was I. We're taking the E and placing it in that spot, in the essentially the spot that's indexed by 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3. Essentially what we did here is we swapped the E and the I. Next time, on our next pass, we'll swap the I with one of these letters, including itself. And then the next time, it'll be these letters. The next time, it'll be these. So we're essentially taking these and shuffling them all up. Then we have to assign those to our tiles. We'll do that in another loop. This time we'll initialize I to be 0. We'll keep going as long as I is less than 7. Again, this is 0-based index. We'll increment I in this case. Remember that even though we're 0 indexed here, our tiles are not. So we essentially need to add 1 each time so that we can reference the right tile. We'll use a function, change text, and then our tiles are named letter underscore, and we'll concatenate to that J. And what we'll put there is whatever is now in the word array, because we jumbled up. Basically all this did was jumbled up the letters in the word array. And that's it. We have, to quickly reiterate, we have 3 arrays of characters. We create an array of arrays. We generate a random number to pick one of these words. Once we did that, we jumbled up the letters within that word. Again, we're referencing word here, not words. So we jumble up the letters using this algorithm. And then we walk through, so let's say this were picked, prairie. We then walk through each letter and assign that to a tile in a loop. Let's try it out. We might have to debug. That's a lot of script. We could easily make a mistake. I can test this out, and because we're using, essentially it's saying we don't have any errors, but what it doesn't know how to do is reference. It can't really work out whether we did this correctly, but we definitely did not flag any missing functions or incorrect functions. So essentially we're error free. Save and close. We'll save. Now let's go ahead and preview this in the browser. So once again, we see our background color that we chose in the theme, and then we'll see our Frank Lloyd Wright style. And here you can see it seems to be the word organic all jumbled up. Our letters, we can drag them, but we can't drag them outside of the rack. So I can essentially move these out of the way. And there's our organic. Now you can write code that will determine whether or not the player put these in the right order, but I think we've bitten off a lot and there's a lot to chew on, so I'll keep it simple and just leave it at that. But I'll refresh this one more time just to see what we come up with randomly. And so the first word was organic, and this looks like it's prairie all jumbled up. And again, we've made each of these tiles draggables so that we can easily allow the player to reorder them. So that concludes our discussion of arrays. And I know that at first it just seems very daunting. There's a lot of code there, but if you walk through it and think like a computer step by step, you can figure out what's going on and apply that to your own designs. So until next time.